9-to-5 corporate job, and you've been watching certain YouTube economists and other podcasters saying that the American dream is dead, you have no hope, that the rich are sucking the life out of the middle class, or you can only obtain true wealth by starting a business, this is BS. And it made me very angry because it's just not true. You can win the corporate game and create a lot of personal wealth. If you're a regular 9-to-5 corporate employee, whether young and early in your career, or even if you're older and think that you're behind and you feel stuck and you're worried about being laid off and want to know some tactics about how you can minimize your chance of being affected, maybe you feel that you can't save for retirement. Well, this series of videos will be for you. And in this video, I'm going to give you the first key to win, along with a detailed specific example to start changing your situation to move towards corporate wealth and a rich career and retirement that anyone, and I do mean anyone, can have, especially with a normal corporate job and career. So who am I? I'm Milan, and I started as a corporate nobody. I started as an entry-level corporate employee 11 years after time in the military and the FBI after college. At a junior level, then spent over 2 decades then growing my career to retire as a senior vice president of a Fortune 100 company. So I've been through this process and have helped others along the way. A minute of context on business ownership and why corporate careers for wealth generation are important to consider and why you shouldn't be discouraged. So in 2025, there were approximately 32 million small businesses out of 300 million plus people in the US. So that's about 1 in 10. And according to the 2024 data from the US Bureau of Labor Statistics, 20.4% of businesses fail in their first year after opening, 49.4% fail in their first 5 years, and 65.3% fail in their first 10 years. So what does that really tell you? Many of us are going to work corporate careers to obtain wealth, and many people do obtain a lot of wealth in their corporate careers, just like you can. So through this series, I'm going to talk in detail about what others, particularly those that have made senior levels like I have, usually don't like to talk about, which is how do you become successful and work your way up to senior levels? What's the income growth career plan to succeed in corporate life and get to that rich life or retirement or financial independence that you really want? The topics will include things like how to frame your value and promotion position, how to think about being an entrepreneur in your own company to grow your personal brand and value. How do you grow your role tactically? When should you be looking to move to another role? How do you survive a bad manager and potentially still have the support for a promotion? And really important is this idea of understanding how senior level people really think about value in the business. I'm talking vice president leaders and up, and how their mindset usually differs from lower levels, and how that mindset, if you can use it now in your current role at whatever level you are, will really increase your visibility and your career, all in the end, which leads to personal corporate wealth. Now, these are all things that I wish I knew coming up in my career, but frankly, I had no one to share them with me. So I'm hoping some of these will help you. Now, the first key to really understand is that the corporate career and money situation is a game where you have to weaponize and exploit the rules to win. Now, I don't mean exploit in a malicious, unethical way, or even by stepping on people and leaving bodies behind you. In the corporate sense, we call that being the tactical nuke employee. It can be done in a positive, supporting, and effective way. But I really struggled with finding people who really understood how to tie this together end to end in your career as you transition through these stages. And you really have to take and control the game and not be played by it. You play the game, don't be controlled by the game. If you don't consistently and constantly work to control the game, then you will be consumed by it. And being consumed by the game equates to a number of things you can see, which is being stuck in a role, not getting promotion in an inordinate long amount of time, getting laid off. And my experience, unfortunately, is that most people get complacent and then allow themselves to be consumed. They may start off at a piece of their time and career where they're hungry and they're focusing on exploiting rules, but then they get comfortable, they get complacent, and then bad things happen. Now, as an example, I mentioned my own first constraint, which is that I started 11 years after my college contemporaries in the corporate world. I took a role coming in, not knowing the rules, where the money was good, but the level was bad. And I did not know that. I had no frame of reference. So I started probably 3 levels behind my contemporaries. So I had a lot of ground to catch up on. And I know many people get stuck in that position, and there are things that we can do to help rectify that and change the trajectory. So if you don't really understand how to weaponize any number of these rules, you really have to do some research. And you must learn that these rules, what these rules are, and how they're different based on location, corporation, your role. And it's not just politics. Weaponizing the rules of the game can definitely more easily get you promoted and grow your responsibility and value and your overall scope. And they can also help guard you against being laid off as your value continues to grow. And as that happens, so does your corporate wealth. Unfortunately, I mentioned most people refuse to learn the rules or even look for examples around them that have worked and tried to emulate them. You can really see it in the attitude. And if you're self-reflective, I know at times in my career, I was a right fighter, which is I felt the rules were being worked against me, that it shouldn't work this way. It's not fair. How come this person gets way more visibility and the project doesn't seem to be as valuable as mine? These are all statements that reflect a person that are being played by the game. Now, let me give it a real specific example in depth here about how you can weaponize a rule that most people in the corporate world will come across, which is how do you get the promotion recommendation and get promoted? The way it usually people assume it works is that you have a really good manager who understands that your goal is to promote. And that manager should do the bulk of the work in terms of setting your goals, make sure that you're providing value at the next level through the work that you're doing, know how to write the promotion recommendation form, be proactive in pushing you to go do this. My experience is that most managers, particularly at the more junior levels, have no experience doing this. So why would you rely on your manager? I know this isn't the case across the board, but most junior managers who are recently promoted are managing the most junior people. And as you get more senior, you manage more and more people. So the degrees of separation from somebody starting out versus a more senior manager who has some years of experience doing this, there's a big gap there. And why would you rely on your manager versus taking control of the game and the rules in order to give yourself the best chance? And this is what I mean by the rules. Every HR system publishes, at least in major companies, on what it takes to get promoted, what the next level requires. And it amazes me when people would come see me who wanted help that they didn't even read them, didn't try to really dissect what's a good example of a promotion recommendation form, what kind of information is needed, how should you format the data. I mean, it's really a bunch of activities that don't really talk about the success metrics and what value you actually added. That is an art as well as a science. And frankly, most junior managers aren't good at it because they've never had to do it. So really, the rule here to weaponize is the promotion process and not allowing it to be played on you, but taking control of that and defining the rules that you're going to play by. So let's assume you've had that conversation. I know I've had them in the past with your manager, which is, hey, I'd really like to know if I'm on track. And then the manager says, well, you haven't been in the role that long. We need a little bit more time. And why don't we talk about it in a month or two? And then that becomes a month or two. And before you know it, you're getting frustrated. You don't know if the manager's just putting you off or you're not ready. So why do you leave it to chance? There's a positive way to push this issue. So let's dissect that and walk it through. When you get the promotion recommendation form, what you do then is you fill it out yourself. That's taking control of it. You know your value the best, and you will not likely get it right the first time, and that is okay. You want to fail fast with it. you write the promotion recommendation from the best you can, and then you get feedback. You try to start with your manager. And again, a junior manager may not have the most experience to give you the best feedback. So then what you try to do based on the rules is figure out who has to approve at different levels. Senior promotions have to be approved by a board of senior people. To make VP, a board of VPs and SVPs have to approve your recommendation. Ones that you've worked with where you provided value, slightly different story, but for our junior ones, it might just be a few people. Your manager, your skip level, and those levels, are usually straight up a line above you, not necessarily out per se. And then go to the peer managers and ask them to review it for you. They have no skin in the game. If there's a manager or a team you work with, ask their manager to review your form and say, hey, look, I'm coming up on promotion. Can you please just take a look at this and let me know to go from, say, a PM2 to a senior PM? Would this make sense to you? Am I missing certain deliverables? Am I not providing the right level of value? Are these projects not big enough at the next level to prove that I can do the work? Please give me the feedback. And the more different managers you can go to over coffee for 30 minutes, you'd be surprised what good feedback you get. And then you can reincorporate that back into the form. Say, okay, well, this project was good, but you really need to talk about what value it did. And here's a few examples of how to do that. You go back, you think about it, you iterate. So now what you're doing is building a much better business case. And your manager hasn't even necessarily seen this yet. Continue to do that. And then once you have it done, then you can submit it to your manager. And once you have that form, let's just say in as good a state as possible with the right level of work, the right kind of metrics for success, then talk to your manager. Say, hey, would you mind supporting this? And if they say no, well, then ask them why not. Say, what's missing from this? Does this not meet your bar? Because these managers kind of said it looked pretty good to them. And so if you have a different view, I'd love to hear it. You're seeding these ideas that other people agree already. I'll talk about that more in a more specific example. Now, remember, this is a great indication by using the rules if you're tracking towards a promotion. And it's extremely valuable to be able to do this because at every level, especially when you get more senior, it becomes harder. And the more that you can take ownership of this rule and weaponize it, the faster you actually will get to promotion, which means more wealth through earnings. The example that I'll use here, a real life example, was there was a person on another team that I knew who was trying to make vice president. Their manager didn't really believe the role required a vice president, and this person disagreed. So he has a hostile manager to begin with. So what I did, I said, look, why don't you just get the form and fill it out, and I will help review it. I was an SVP at the time, and I said, I'll review it objectively and tell you, does the scope make sense? Do the metrics of success that you delivered make sense? I'll help you with the first draft till where I feel comfortable with it. And then you can go shop it around to some of the peer managers to your manager to get feedback, who are SVPs or equivalents at the time. And so we spent about 6 months doing this project. It took a few iterations for him to get it to where I felt it was good, that I would support it if I had real data behind this. And then he went to a few of the other managers who would be on the board and said, hey, I've worked with your team. I'd love to get a recommendation. I also would like to have you look at what I did for you in my promotion recommendation, make sure it makes sense, that the metrics are correct. And he got another few to agree that, yeah, it looked good. And they would be supportive, because I told him to ask at the end, would you be supportive of this if this came across? I'm planning to ask my manager to submit it. And they said, yeah, I think so. And so I said, okay, then you've done all the work. Now you've got to take it to your manager and say, I'd like you to submit this promotion for me. I've already talked to these other couple managers who agree that the value I provided was at the VP level. So can you please take a look at it and then let me know if there's anything missing from you? Notice that he was handling it as a weapon, not as a receiver, in the hope that the manager would do it. He was driving the conversation, driving the rule of promotion. And guess what? That manager did not want to disagree with some of his peers that this person wasn't ready. It's not a good position to be in at that level. When other people say that your person's ready, you better have a darn good reason about why then you're not putting that person in for a promotion. And guess what? He got the promotion. I mean, that's an example, specific example I will use for weaponizing a rule. that you can do at every level. You can do this whether you're a junior employee or a senior employee. And I will do a more detailed video later on the exact process. And I cannot stress how important it is for rules, whether it's getting cross-group collaboration, there are rules on this. How should you enter a new group to gain value and basically earn chits? There are rules for that as well. So in the next couple of videos though, I want to build upon this process of the first one is weaponized rules. The next video will really be around what does career wealth mean? Like there are two aspects of it that you really have to understand because everything that you do will be towards those two rules to create corporate wealth. And this is the same thing that I use, that many other people use, and that over time, you can really be anyone in the corporate world, a nobody like me, and make wealth and have a great corporate career, be financially independent, and work towards those life goals that you really want. So please don't listen to those YouTube economists and vlogging entrepreneurs that preach these defeatist attitudes and fear-mongering attitudes that say developing a business is the only way to get wealth, because it's absolutely not true. You can absolutely create the wealth in corporate roles. So if you have any questions, please put them below, or any ideas that you want to see videos on. So I'll see you in the next video.